Crow flies on the Vance Crowe podcast.
Kevin Edwards, welcome back to the podcast.
What's up, Vance Crowe?
Hey,
good to see you.
We spoke about a month ago where you were one of the very first people that I had met that had been actually impacted by coronavirus more than a couple events got canceled or we're not supposed to be going outside too much. What is life like for a Las Vegas bartender that lost his job a month ago?
So what has been the most interesting thing to find out for me is that life as a Las Vegas bartender is like life as almost everybody in Vegas. And that is, we're not working. Nobody's working. And it's been fascinating to me to find out that almost everybody I know from out of state is still working. They're working from home, or they're working reduced hours, or they're doing something. But there is still, I've been tracking on my Strava bike rides each day how long I've been out of work. So this is day 32 since I was laid off, and all the bartenders were laid off, and everything shut down. And I still personally know one person in Vegas that is currently working their job, and she's a doctor. And everybody else I know is out of work.
What has it been like during the day? Like, how are you spending your time?
Do a lot of mountain biking every day. That has been a really crazy thing to watch transition in Vegas, is the trailheads and the outdoor recreation activities have been bombarded with people because it's the only thing to do here. Literally, there is, the stores are jammed. Walmart is jammed. Home Depot, Lowe's, all of those are packed because nobody here has anything to do during the day. Everyone's doing home improvement projects. There are so many people hitting hiking trails and biking trails that they're having to send park rangers out to turn people away because cars are backing up the highway traffic. It's literally, there was a meme like with Bill Murray from the Groundhog Day thing, like, oh, it's quarantine day again. Like, my friends and I have trouble remembering what day of the week it is.
So
the whole place is shut down.
The what you're describing is, what would everybody do if they had anything that they could do with their time within these parameters? And you're seeing that people are going outside, they're biking, they're trying to shop. Do you think this is a bad experience for people? Are they worried out there on the trails, or are they having a good time?
Well, they're having a good time when they're out there, but I know everybody is going home. And then when you're at home, and this is why I'm guessing is why so many people are not staying home, because when you're sitting at home in Vegas, all you're thinking about is how there's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. Nobody's making any money. Nobody is, I don't know how else to explain it. I mean, there's people posting videos almost daily now of like riding their bikes down the Las Vegas Strip, because when have you ever been able to do that? Just weaving in and out of the casino entrances and the parking garages that are usually so backed up with cars that it takes half an hour to get in and out of an entrance to a casino. And now it's like a ghost town. There's nothing there.
I mean, Las Vegas truly only exists so that people can come together and interact in the way that they want to. And if you keep people apart, it is an oasis out there in the desert, and there's actually not water there.
Yeah. And it's so now the governor has come on and said that they're going to try to start considering reopening. And I read an article of a meeting of all the casino CEOs and execs getting together and figuring out how we're going to do this. And like the Wynn, for example. So the Wynn and Encore, that's one of the major players on the Las Vegas Strip. So the CEO already came out and said that we're going to start implementing measures to get ready to reopen. But part of what that means is that they are going to have thermal imaging sensors at every entrance to the casino. And anyone who registers over 100 degrees, they will be pulled aside and separately tested. And if they still register over 100 degrees body temperature, then they will be isolated and either sent away or isolated until they cool down, which is hilarious because it's about to be 110 degrees here.
Oh.
Everybody's going to walk in with body temperatures over 100 degrees.
Oh, God, I never thought of that.
And they said that every single employee is going to have to wear a face mask. Think about how much it's going to suck to walk into a casino and be like, yeah, we're in Vegas. And everything you look at just reminds you of this massive pandemic and fear.
Yeah.
I mean, they're so excited to get the casinos back open because that's the only thing that generates money for the city, the county, I mean, all the city governments. But nobody's going to want to come. I mean, who's going to hear where you're in Kansas or St. Louis, right?
Yeah, I'm not hopping on a plane to go to Vegas.
Right.
There's no
so
chance.
You know the casinos are going to open and be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to jump on the first flight. No. And we sure as hell, we as the like frontline people, we don't want like anyone from overseas coming over. I don't want to interact with anybody from overseas for 6 more months at least.
Are you worried about getting the disease?
No. I'm of that same believer that it's a really bad flu. It's bad. I don't want to get it, but I think that all of the steps that were taken, and I think they were taken correctly, was to prevent the healthcare system from being overwhelmed. I don't think the biggest fear is that you're going to catch this and die. I had a friend. I've only known, 2 people personally, but only one in Las Vegas that has tested positive for it. And it was a husband and wife. They were on a cruise ship when all the shit hit the fan. And so they were on a cruise down to Costa Rica. Then everything happened worldwide, and Costa Rica wouldn't let them port. So they just sat off the coast of Costa Rica for 4 days. And then Costa Rica said, no, you got to go back. And they sent them all the way back to San Diego. So they just sailed down for 7 days, sat in the ocean for 4 days, and then sailed back for 7 days. And the captain told everybody that, no, but there's no symptoms. Everybody's fine. They ported. They let everybody off. And then they said, oh, by the way, there was a bunch of sick people on there, but we knew they wouldn't let us port if we reported that.
Oh,
yeah. So his wife tested positive and she got pretty sick. But they didn't get the test results back to her for like 2 weeks. So he was sleeping with her every night. They've got 3 daughters. And they were just running their family like normal. But none of the rest of the family got sick. She's the only one that got it. So that's the only personal experience I know of anyone getting it. The other one that I know, she's out in North Carolina now, and she almost died.
I had
that was crazy, but
a nurse, an ICU nurse on, and we were talking 2 days ago or yesterday, and it was really interesting because he was describing like caring for a person that has coronavirus and seeing how many more people that have been placed into the hospital because they can't breathe. And he actually does the putting the oxygen down your throat and knowing what it takes to make that happen. And he's like, this is not normal. We do not fill up rooms and rooms, hallways of people with ventilators. This is a serious thing.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing to remember, because you start watching this stuff saying, hey, I really want the economy to go open and I really want it to be so people have jobs. But you listen to a nurse's explanation of what's going on in the healthcare system. It is legit. It has like actual serious consequences.
Oh, yeah.
But you can't freeze everybody up for it because some people have to keep going.
One of the, I think I said this last time we talked, but this virus has not only been the worldwide pandemic, but it also has been the greatest meme creator on the internet that I have ever seen of anything. And somebody posted up yesterday, because the mayor of Las Vegas has been very outspoken about, this is ridiculous. We need to open everything back up. And of course, if you're the mayor of
Las Vegas, you're probably really for opening up. And the people that support you to get into the office, they want you open.
It's just following the money. Yes. So, but somebody put up and then said, okay, so saying that we've flattened the curve so we can open the economy back up now is kind of like being halfway through a skydive and saying, well, my parachute has slowed me down dramatically, so I'm just going to take it off now. that was pretty good explanation.
So what are you doing for income right now? Like, how are you managing and surviving?
Unemployment.
How does that work?
Well, I got in pretty early because I was laid off pretty quickly. And it's primarily done on an online system. And if you can get through, it's fantastic. If you can't, I had 1 week where it took me 3 days to get through on the online system, but that's been fine compared to what I've heard. Because if you mess up,
you have to apply.
You have to apply every week. And the people that have to do it by phone, there are some people that I know have been out of work for 3 weeks and still have not been able to get through by phone. Somebody screenshotted the other day and put it up. They've at 302 calls to the unemployment office, they finally got through. And then we're told that the queue is full and they'll have to call back.
What happens when these people don't have money? How much do they have in reserve to be able to buy groceries and keep things going?
It's Vegas. Nobody saves money here. Everybody lives. Before this, everybody I know lived like
paycheck to paycheck.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, there is a lot of excess and waste in Vegas. We'll just say that. And when you live here, you get kind of sucked into it because there's just, I mean, I've been here for 18 years now. And I remember when I first moved here with who is now my ex-wife, and we'd been here for like 3 weeks, and I turned to her at one night and said, I don't really feel like drinking or gambling tonight. What do you want to do? And the ongoing joke is it's been 18 years now, and I still don't have a good question for that. That's just, what you do in Vegas. You just go out, and the places you go out, everywhere has gambling. The grocery stores have gambling. The gas stations have gambling. Everything has gambling. And so you just go out and you throw a few bucks in a machine, you have some drinks, and then you start talking about what you want to do that night.
Wow.
And it's when the governor put in that order and said that all gambling, all machines, all forms of gambling will cease at midnight tonight. And that was March 14th or 17th or whatever. Like, I don't think people really understood. I know some people, like, even later on were like, well, let's just go to the gas station and throw $20 in one of their machines. I'm like, no, every machine, everything stopped. And when you take gambling out of Las Vegas, yeah, there's just nothing here to do. It is literally 500,000 people living on unemployment now.
Is weed still available in Las Vegas? Yeah. I wonder if you could even have what's going on right now happen if you didn't have weed as widely available in that city, because there's got to be a lot of people smoking weed right now.
Oh, yeah. There's a ton. And the liquor stores just got approved to reopen last week for curbside pickup. And immediately the dispensaries started saying the same thing. Well, because right now you can order, but it has to be delivered. And apparently they were, lo and behold, having some problems with deliveries actually reaching the people they were supposed to get to. So dispensaries wanted to have curbside pickup as well to make sure that the people that were ordering it were actually getting it.
So, what do you think happens next? I mean, if you're talking about Las Vegas not really being able to open under the parameters that they're talking about, like, how long do people live in Las Vegas and get money from the government in a place where you don't know when it comes back?
That is an interesting question. And first off, in talking about the reopening of the casinos, so they have laid out that they will try to reopen. They're going to try to do it the first week of May, is the last I've been told. But they will have, every employee will have to wear a mask. They will have social distancing protocols. So that means you're going to have a maximum of maybe 3 people at any gambling table. And all the video poker and slot machines are going to have 6-foot gaps between them. You've been to a casino, right? You know how jammed in those things are. And for the last 10 years, the greatest revenue generator in Las Vegas hasn't even been gambling. It's the nightclubs. You can't have a nightclub if people have to stay 6 feet apart.
Yeah, there's no blowing on dice. There's no getting loaded at the nightclub and then walking around and playing blackjack and blowing all that money.
No.
There's none of that.
I mean, literally, when they reopen it, the people that are going to come are going to be problem-addicted gamblers that have been like drug addicts on withdrawal. But the fun, crazy, the reason people come to Vegas, that's not going to exist for months or even more, even when they reopen these casinos. So the second part of your question, talking about, well, one of the other greatest things about Vegas, not greatest as in terms of yeehaw, but one of the biggest known elements of Vegas is its continued growth. And so many people move here from California or places that have high state income taxes because we don't have any state income tax. And there's always jobs to be had. There's always, and they were just, there was an article showed up yesterday, the day before, about how housing rental rates are about to drop way down because nobody's moving here, but they're still building apartments and houses like crazy. So if we don't have 100,000 people a month moving here, like has been historically, then now what do we do?
A lot of people don't realize that after the housing market, and then you have the when prices collapse and then they slowly come back up, people think, oh, we're not going to get leveraged in the same way that we were before, people buying all these houses and trying to flip them. Well, there was another way to keep houses on the market, which was Airbnbs. And so there are a lot of people that mortgaged or that took on a mortgage and were able to get the bank financing because they could prove that the Airbnb would be there solid and that would be a steady source of revenue. And there are a lot of Airbnbs available in Las Vegas.
That is true.
And there are people that are not only covering the mortgage on that apartment or house, they're also helping them cover their own mortgage. And that when that starts to collapse, that's what my friend Kate Crosby calls a trophic collapse, where the thing on the bottom starts to fall out, and then you have this cascade of a trophic cascade. You have this cascade of other things that break down as a result of it. It seems to me like that's what happens when a place like Las Vegas, people are not coming there, moving out. That
is absolutely true. I mean, that cascade effect is like what you talked about in the 08, 09, when people were buying a house and then it would go up in value. They'd have all this equity, pull it out and buy another house. And that would go up. They'd pull out all the equity and buy another house. And then that whole cascade happened in reverse to where they ended up losing all the houses. And yeah, you're right, because there are a ton of Airbnbs. And in fact, so many more people were buying those for that reason because of the Raiders football team moving here. Because they're supposed to start playing football here next season. 2
home games a year would pay for that all year long, right? Like,
yep. And how soon are we going to be able to pack 80,000 people into a football stadium?
So Kevin, what does this mean for you? Like, you look around, this is the environment that you're trying to grow in. What do you think?
I think very differently than a lot of people, particularly in Las Vegas. The focus on wealth and money growth and everything that drives this town is not part of me. I never intended to be in Las Vegas for more than a few years. So for me, it's kind of interesting. It's almost kind of enjoyable to sit back and watch this whole thing collapse. And it's not enjoyable for me personally because I am collapsing along with it. There's no doubt. But as a human perspective, for everybody to realize that maybe the constant ongoing pursuit of generating more and more and more wealth is maybe not what this life is supposed to be about is kind of an interesting thing to me. It's being centered in a whole city that is driven by generate more and more and more and more wealth. Come to Las Vegas and get lucky and get wealthy.
I mean, I think
it's
that's
the whole concept of the city.
Yeah, like it is that there's some divine force that will take fortune on you and that you'll walk away without having to make a sacrifice, right? That your money will come because you just put a little bit up and then the gods might bless you. It's an interesting thing because everybody in Las Vegas is going to be forced to say, what sacrifice am I going to make going forward? Because the old rules, the old ways to make sacrifices to make money aren't going to be there anymore.
Yeah. And the people, I mean, there's still a massive customer base for the gambling industry that is the local population here. I mean, the Strip is primarily tourists, but there's almost 3 million people that live in the Valley, and all of those locals don't go to the Strip. We go to a little neighborhood bar and all this, and that is a massive, massive industry here.
Do you gamble a lot?
But not a lot, but some every week for sure. Like most everybody that lives here.
Some every week is like jarring to me because like if I go to Vegas, I barely ever gamble, and if I do, it would be like I took a certain amount of money that I was saying is the equivalent of me going to the theater, and I just bought a theater ticket or a baseball ticket or something. But outside of that, I never gamble.
Right. And that's an interesting thing when you live here. Because it's like, hey, well, let's go out to eat. And for you, if you say, let's go out to eat, well, that's going to be 40, 60, 80, $100, whatever, that you're going to spend going to eat. Well, here, you can do the same thing and say, let's go eat, but we'll put 40, 60, 80, $100 in the machine, and then we'll get our drinks and probably some of our food, if not all of our food, comped, and we have a chance to get the money back. So, I mean, it's just for a majority of the people that live here, that's just kind of the way life is when you live here.
Can you imagine living a life where that's not the nightlife?
Absolutely. Definitely. One of the funniest things, and I don't know if you even know this, and we definitely didn't talk about it last time, but one of the funniest things to me is I've spent the whole last year of my life like whittling down all my possessions. And on Christmas Eve of this last year, I bought an RV. And that's where I live. I bought an RV specifically because I want to live in an RV. And that's it. This awesome, wonderful house that I'm sitting in right now is my girlfriend's house. But
whoa.
But so when I was working 3 nights a week, I would just go park my RV outside my work, and then I'd go to work from midnight to 8 a.m., and then I'd get up and I'd walk out to the parking lot and go to sleep. And then 3 nights a week, I'd go camp it out by a mountain bike trailhead or a friend's house or girlfriend's house. And then I'd stay there. And this has been a dream of mine for 18 years to do this. And I had just got it done and started to transition my whole life to live that way. And all of a sudden I have this RV and all this time on my hands, and I've got unemployment money coming in, which isn't enough, but it's still money coming in at least. And gas is super cheap. And there's nowhere I can go. Everything's closed.
Oh, everything. Man, that's like a Twilight Zone episode.
It is. It's so weird. My girlfriend's never been to the Grand Canyon, ever. And it's only 2.5 hours for us to drive there. And I was like, and her birthday was on the 18th. It's just a few days ago. And so I was like, well, for your birthday, let's take the RV. I'll drive you out to the Grand Canyon. It's closed. The whole Grand Canyon is closed. The highway to get to the Grand Canyon is closed. You can't get there. I had just created this massive transition in my life to live an entirely different way from the way society lives. And all of a sudden, there's nowhere I can go.
Is there if the quarantine was lifted right now, is that what you would do? Just go around to parks?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I would travel a lot because there's nothing we can't.
How far will the money take take you that you're getting on unemployment, like of your obligations that you have to meet? How is all that working out?
It will not take me far. The only reason why I'm surviving right now is because my ex-wife has agreed and understands that I have to give her a very reduced amount of child support. And the company that finances my car and my RV is allowing us to just not make payments right now, which is amazing. But so my obligations have been whittled down quite far, but it's still not, unemployment money is still not enough to cover all of those obligations. But there's nothing to do. I would take off.
What are your friends doing now with their time? You said if everybody in Vegas except for the one doctor isn't working, what are your friends doing?
They're all doing the same thing. We go mountain biking almost every day. My girlfriend is really into kickboxing, and she has her trainer started doing lessons in the park, and one at a time. So she does that a couple times a week. I mean, that's people go to the store all the time because there's just nothing else to do. It's just so different from talking to my family in Colorado or my friends in Seattle or my friends in California, where everybody's still kind of like managing their work schedules and rearranging, to work from home, but still having to do these meetings and things. And I'm just surrounded by an entire city of we're all just sitting here going, well, now what?
Yeah, there is no at-home work with Vegas, right? Like,
yeah, there's been a bunch of bartenders that have posted up, hey, just Venmo me $8 and then I'll just Skype you and listen to you bitch about your problems. That's bartending.
Not a bad idea. It's a good pivot. How long do you think people stick in Vegas for then?
It's interesting. Just on the street where my girlfriend lives, I have seen 2 different houses packing up and moving U-Haul trucks and whatever. I'm like, are people just abandoning? And I don't know. I mean, there's all these hashtag Vegas stronger. We'll make through this. We're all in this together. There's all this stuff going on, but I just don't see how the industry is going to recover. I mean, there was MGM Resorts is losing $3 million a day. And they have said that they're going to pay, well, no, not MGM, but Wynn and Sands that owns the Venetian and Palazzo and everything. They have all said they're going to pay their employees through May 15th. I think MGM has actually already cut off a lot of their employees. But And then, the mayor is saying we're going to try to open everything up the first week in May and all this stuff, which I don't really think is going to happen. And one of the other casinos just announced yesterday that on May 11th, they're going to lay off a majority of their workforce. And I think they understand that even if they try to reopen, it's going to be on such a limited basis that they're not going to be able to afford. It's going to cost them more money almost to reopen than it will be to stay closed. Because theoretically, those big casinos, they could pull the total dick move and just lay everybody off and say, okay, now all of you have to go get unemployment now too. I mean, that's another probably 100,000 people that are still employed by the casinos and don't have to get unemployment insurance because they're still getting paid. But if this goes another month,
those phone lines get a lot longer.
I mean, I don't know what the total numbers are for unemployment right now, but it will be another massive wave of people filing for unemployment if the casinos are unable to reopen and they've hemorrhaged so much money that now they can't keep paying.
So when you look at how dire it is for the disease to be contained or handled, managed, how long do you think it'll be before things are under control enough that the city could be as vibrant as it was in January?
A lot of my opinions on that are based on what happened in previous pandemics that I read about, the Spanish flu and that kind of stuff, where second waves came through and decimated the population all over again. And my feeling is that they are probably going to reopen the casinos prematurely, and there will be outbreaks and they will have to shut everything down again. And I am guessing that we are well more than a year out from really being able to open back up to where Vegas is a destination where people want to go to.
Wow.
That's my opinion.
You know, and you think about that, and it's not just the gambling that people will do. It's not just all the meals that they won't eat. It's all those conferences that people attend. It's all that booth space. It's all the interactions and the hotel rooms and the number of beds being made and the number of, who knows, the guys that deliver the glasses for the bar, you know, like
Yeah.
it's unimaginable. And really in every city in America where hospitality, the parts of the city where hospitality is what drives that part of the economy, you're talking about those things going away.
Yeah. I just don't see how it almost ever comes back to what it was.
What do people in the hospitality world do for work if there's not hospitality?
I don't know, but I know there's not going to be enough of whatever that is in Vegas to sustain the population that lives here. And part of the problem with living in Vegas, as I said, I had only planned to be here a couple of years. But part of the problem is that once you start in that industry and get a little bit established, you can't go anywhere else and make the kind of money that you're making without going back to years of schooling and retraining and reworking your way back up the ladder. And so living here and working in the casino industry, it almost kind of traps you. You can't get out because there's nowhere else you can go to make the kind of money that you were making doing this.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people call corporate America the golden handcuffs. You know, you get paid doing a job that you absolutely hate because you're not willing to sacrifice the money and the position that you got to in life to go somewhere else. Golden handcuffs.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people that get really sick of working in the casino business, and they go get whatever degrees, radiology or what, that just happens to be one friend that I can think of, but they leave, and it is amazing the percentage, vast majority of them that just come back because they had a dream and a desire to go do something else, but you're only making half the money and working twice as hard.
What kind of money are people making when they're working in Vegas? Like if you're dealing cards, you're dealing blackjack, what are you making doing that?
As a blackjack dealer, I was making really the best year that I ever had was probably just shy of 50,000, which is one of the reasons I got out of blackjack dealing.
Okay.
I really wish I would have gotten into bartending 18 years ago when I moved here. Because if you're working at the little joints, I work at a pretty small joint. I'm not making a killing, but bartenders that I know that are full-time working at big bars, you know, on the strip, nightclubs, whatever. I mean, 500 to 1,000 a night.
Wow.
Some of them more.
Yeah, and the other type of work that you make that kind of money is if you're doing oil rigs out in the middle of Alberta or something.
Yeah, for like 4 months straight. Yeah, that kind of thing. And it's really funny in Vegas to, well, not anymore, but in normal Vegas times, it was really funny to be at the airport on a Friday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon and watch all the off-duty strippers arrive in their sweatsuits and their juicy couture. And, you know, they fly in from California or Phoenix or whatever and work for 2 nights and make $5,000, $8,000, $10,000, and then fly home and work their dental hygienist jobs or whatever.
I didn't know that.
It's a massive influx every weekend. It's hilarious to see it.
Oh, wow. Well, that's probably, I imagine stripping is probably, it'll be one of the first to come back, but it's probably not going on too much right now.
Yeah, there was one of the strip clubs in town was advertising for a little while, drive-through lap dance.
Wow.
I don't know if they were kidding or not, but I think they were reaching for straws, anything they could do to keep going.
So earlier you mentioned about people having some vices there where there's alcohol or gambling there. What you're getting out and cycling, right? But there are people that must be sitting in their places drinking or doing whatever drugs they were doing before. What does that look like in a city like Las Vegas?
I have read several reports already of the vast drop in a majority of the crime here, with the exception of domestic abuse. That has apparently gone way up. And that's just obviously sad, and I don't even like to think about it. But that is definitely an issue. There are a lot of people here that is all they do is go out and drink and gamble, and they just work in order to fund their drinking and gambling. And yeah, I don't even like to think about it, because I never wanted to be a person like that. I don't want to associate with people like that, but it is a big percentage of the population that lives here.
Yeah, and once you have a vice, to be in a bad situation makes that vice, have that much tighter of a grip over you. And
you just get angry.
Yeah, I think about like if I would have been 15 years old living at home, I would have been like wanting to get out, and I probably would have had conflict with my parents, but I was not afraid of my parents. Like I didn't have to worry about my parents having too much to drink and beating the crap out of me.
Yeah.
Like with that going on right now, like there have got to be a lot of little 15-year-old boys and girls that are in a bad spot. They're old enough to know what's going on, but not old enough to take control of their destiny, and they're with people that let their vices take over.
Yeah, that is scary, because you're right. It's got to be happening, not just here, but all over the place, and that is terrifying.
Kevin, man, I am really grateful you've been so open, and I think a lot of people will benefit from understanding what's going on in Vegas. From where you sit right now, April 23rd, 2020, what will the world look like in 2 weeks? We'll be in the beginning of May.
In 2 weeks?
Yeah.
The whole world or Vegas world?
However far you can see.
Those are definitely two different worlds.
Yeah, what's Vegas look like in 2 weeks?
I think Vegas looks exactly the same. Just, it's a ghost town. It's so bizarre to go down the strip and just see barricades in front of all the doors and caution tape and cones in front of all the entrances. I mean, it's almost like a zombie movie, apocalyptic.
You'll have to get me some photos or videos of that. I want to see it.
I will. I'll send you a link to. There's been a couple of guys that have really gone out and documented it well and posted on social media and stuff. But I'll send you some of that stuff, and you can add it into the video or whatever.
Yeah, I'll throw it in the show notes.
Because it is crazy to see that just vast emptiness where you're so used to seeing hundreds of thousands of people. But in 2 weeks' time, I don't think anything changes in Vegas. In the world's time, I think that the uproar will get more and more to get the economy back going and really pushing for that. And I think it's going to turn more and more political. Whatever views you are about the president or about our government or whatever, it's going to just polarize it even more.
And a month ago, you mentioned you'd picked up a gun from your dad. Are you glad you have it?
Yeah, haven't really felt anywhere where I've been unsafe, or that I feel like we've gotten to that point society-wise. But yeah, I think I will definitely be a gun owner for the rest of my life now.
Is that different than the past?
Yeah, it was just kind of a here or there. I didn't really feel passionately about it one way or the other, but to see through this pandemic how quickly society can collapse. And again, I'm in a hot spot for how quick it fall apart. But I mean, I think that it wouldn't take too much more to push people over the edge, especially somewhere like here where just everything goes away.
Are the bartenders and waitresses and card dealers, are they pushing by the end of 2 weeks to open up the casinos, or are they afraid to go back to work?
I don't think they're pushing for it. I think mostly we're kind of afraid to go back to work. If anything, more of the feeling of what I get, at least from the industry people, is kind of the longing. I miss making money. I miss spending money. I miss going out and doing things and having fun and meeting groups of people. And I get more of that sense of the feeling that people just miss living the Vegas kind of life that they do, as opposed to, hey, we really need to get our economy going again, and that kind of push.
Well, living in Las Vegas wasn't like living in all of the U.S., and it was on purpose. People went there because the rules were different there. So you can imagine there being a sort of allegiance, in the same way people are from Texas. They really are from Las Vegas, and everybody's a foreigner, right? Like everybody's an outsider.
Yeah, I mean, it's everybody talks about it. It's it's Disneyland for grown-ups. This is where grown-ups come to forget about their life and not care about their responsibilities and all that stuff. And if we can't reopen back up with that atmosphere of, hey, come on over and we'll just help you forget about your responsibilities for a while. We'll help you forget about the drudgeries of your life because it's Vegas. You can do whatever you want here. Well, if it's, hey, please come to Vegas, but maintain social distancing, please. And we're going to be checking your temperatures all over the place. And there's not going to be any entertainment venues open because we can't pack people in. But you can come sit in these massive, massive rooms far apart playing video poker or slot machines.
Not as enticing.
It is not as enticing. And I think that's what the politicians and the executives are missing out in their thinking here. And I think that's what the industry people are missing, is the idea of the fun that we have. Even when you hate your job in Vegas as a bartender or a dealer or whatever, there's usually always someone out there that's just there to have fun and you can interact with them. And there's just not a lot of interaction going on.
Yeah. So, last question, and then I'll let you go. A couple of days ago, I interviewed a truck driver that was hauling hogs, and I interviewed him right at the beginning of the crisis, about the same time you and I spoke, and then just spoke with him just the other day. And he's no longer hauling hogs. There are no longer people working at the plants to be able to process those. Now, at some of the plants, they're still going. In fact, a lot of them. But more and more you hear about USDA people or inspectors or workers not at these plants. Are you hearing about this in the regular news? Is this something that you're aware of? And is it something that people are talking about?
I specifically heard that yesterday just because my girlfriend's mom said, we're going to go to this meat supplier tomorrow and we're going to buy a bunch of meat because they have just announced that they don't have anywhere to send their meat anymore. And so that I realized that whole supply chain, everything about it, is falling apart. And she mentioned that several of the meat processing plants here have now shut down because too many of the employees have tested positive. So yes, that specifically that meatpacking plants, I just heard that yesterday.
Wow. Okay. Well, I think that our food system has been astoundingly resilient to this point, because a lot of what we're throwing away was what used to go to restaurants and now goes to grocery stores. But I do think, in my candid assessment, the meat packing just is uniquely, it's difficult to do because you have to have people come together in a single location. A lot of those people are living in families and apartments that are tight knit. They're traveling together because oftentimes they're at the bottom of society. They don't have a ton of money. So you have a bunch of people coming together to do this work that they get paid really well to do because it's a really difficult job, and it's really difficult to keep coronavirus out of there. And it's really difficult for that population to hear it's in there and to want to go to work. But this is where the challenge is, because if they don't go to work, then meat doesn't get processed, and we're okay for a little while. But if you keep that from turning back on, you have real problems in the American system.
Yeah. And I had also just heard about the strawberry industry in California. I think that was since the last time I talked to you.
I haven't heard this.
So I heard this interview a week ago, and they said starting next week, so that would be this week, the California growers were going to have to start throwing away 20 million pounds of strawberries a week because none of the restaurants are ordering. The grocery stores is only 30% of their supply chain, and the other 70% is just gone. And it's not like they can just pause the strawberries.
That's right.
And so the interviewer said, well, why don't you just allow people to just drive up and take strawberries? And they said, yeah, that's fine. Okay, so you show up in your Mustang and you buy 5 pounds of strawberries from us at a great rate. So now we only have 19,999,995 more pounds to try to get rid of this week. And now we got 20 million more next week that we have to get rid of. He said it's a great idea in theory, but we just don't have the infrastructure to make it happen. And the guy said, well, why don't we just freeze them? Same thing. We don't have storage facilities to handle that kind of output. When 70% of your market just goes away, there's nothing you can do but just throw it away.
So now becomes a complicated time because you have dairy farmers, for example. 30% of what a U.S. dairy sold into was the restaurant industry, because you'd make creams and cheeses and sauces and all kinds of things. So when people go out to restaurants, big slat of butter, And but you see, so this milk is now overrunning and there's too much of it, so they have to dump it because those cows they were eating yesterday, they got to be milked today, whether you have the demand or not.
Yeah.
And on the one hand, you think, oh man, we do not want to, one, dump milk, which we don't, right? That's waste. But two, then you start saying, well, if we don't buy that milk from those dairy farmers by the government or, private enterprise, then those dairies are going to go out of business. And, it's tough. You don't want dairies to go out of business. But then you think about well, they are actually contributing too much milk. Maybe they do need to be sold and slaughtered and eaten. And maybe we do need to pare down that amount. I don't want to have to choose which dairies succeed or don't succeed based on who you're buying milk from. I'd rather say let the market do what it's doing. Because if we have too much milk, we don't want to just keep producing it just because we don't want the economy to change.
Yeah. I kind of feel like that about all the industries. I mean, the airline industries are screaming for bailouts all over the place. Well, why do we need 15 different airline companies? Why do they all need to get bailed out? Why don't we just not bail them out and let's see who can survive this thing?
I mean, that's the way you use capitalism to ensure that there is a pandemic response. Because if they know that when something terrible happens, that they're going to get bailed out because there's only, a certain number of us and you've got to have these flights, then maybe if you change around the calculus and say, when something bad happens, if you're not prepared for it, we're going to let you die. People start getting a lot more resilient and start taking on appropriate risk as opposed to inappropriate risk.
Yes. And that I think is going to be one of the major things that comes out of this, both individually and as businesses. is people are going to go, holy crap, the whole world literally can change within a week. And I need to start making better preparations that I can handle that. I can survive situations.
What would you have done differently from the way you prepared for coronavirus? And then this is seriously my last question. Knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently?
We'll keep talking. God, I don't know that I personally would have done anything different because, like I said, I was already on this path of getting rid of almost all my possessions, whittling down my bills to as little as I possibly could. Like, I was designing my life to live minimalistically and spend more time concentrating on adventures and things that give me enjoyment in life rather than just focusing on work. So, and I know that I am such a minuscule percentage of people that think like that. Like, there's a whole bunch of tiny home people out there somewhere that are like my people that I will meet someday, or RV people or something that have just kind of said, you know what, I hate this society thing where all I have to do every day is focus on how much I'm going to work and how much money I'm making and how many more bills that I can pay. So for me, like, I don't know that I would have done anything different. I would have liked to get a little further along in my path before this had all hit to really understand how I'm trying to live like that. But in a way, kind of my preparations were already headed towards this. And so I don't know that I'm really a good one to answer that question for you, because nobody else will relate to that.
If we were together, I would give you a big hand clap and back pat. Like, it'd be great, because you always have such a different perspective on life. It is so different from mine, and I agree with you. It's really different from a lot of people, and I'm grateful that during coronavirus you've been willing to share. And if things change out in Vegas, you start seeing something happen, give me a call, man. I'd love to have you come back on and keep us posted on what's going on.
Yeah, for sure.